What's good, everybody? It's King here. Hope you guys are having a great day. As you see by the title, I'm going to be doing a video that I technically have not done in a while. In this case, being a 2-on-2 video that technically is not actually a form of video that I have technically done, but it's more of a video that involves multiple people. In this case, being not centralized on a one-on-one scenario, as I have done a video, being my shameless plug, the Golden Order versus Ares video, which involved 4v1. But in this, as you see again by the title and the thumbnail, it's going to be StarScourage Radahn and Malenia versus Shao Kahn Onaga. With this being said, there's a few things I want to go ahead and get off the table one time before we actually dig into the main course. Number one, if you're new to this channel and you enjoy the content, please consider leaving a like, share, and subscribe. It really would help me out, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you for watching regardless of the case. Second thing I want to go ahead and say is that if you'd like me to do more of these videos, I'm always trying to be unique, not just in versus battles, scaling, and content in general, but in general, if you would like to go ahead and see me do more of these proactive on being very, more in-depth, radically built different form battles or clashes of this interesting type, let me know. With this being said, the two versions of characters I'm going to be using, but I guess I can go ahead and say for the others that for StarScourage Radahn Malenia, I'm going to be using StarScourage Radahn and his prime, older prime, aka the 35 to 40 foot tall Radahn. And then with Malenia will obviously be prime. I've already talked about Malenia and Radahn heavily on this channel multiple times, so I'm gonna be giving you guys a brief little summary of them within a clip I already have, tied with a little bit of some stuff to go and add a little bit more to the characters. But as well, the versions of Shao Kahn Onaga I'm going to be using is an obvious for Onaga, and even the thumbnail, I'm going to be using old timeline Mortal Kombat, meaning from the first game of Mortal Kombat all the way to Mortal Kombat Armageddon, aka old timeline, aka 3D era, aka arguably the best Mortal Kombat's ever been. But in case that isn't obvious for some people, I just want to go and get out the way. Regardless though, enough talk, let's go and get into it. Malenia is the daughter of Queen Malenia and Radahn, two people who are mixed to believe were not the same at birth or at first. They were formed to each other by the greater will to create something of greater purpose, or have them both be tied to the same fate, as Queen Malenia was trying to differ from the Golden Order, while someone like Radahn was trying to be the ultimate warrior of it. Through them being together, they had different cases of varying children, with the first being the case of Mesmer, which is arguably mixed interpretation to be either a asexual child of Queen Malenia, or be Queen Malenia and Mesmer's first child in between a multi-case of different time, which is very weird, but this Elden Ring lore get crazy just to keep going on forward. Queen Malenia and Radagon's iconic children are the two twin prodigies, Malenia and Mikola. Them both being twins, they're supposed to be of the same age, but Malenia would actually grow more formally, but would be cursed with the Scarlet Rot, a curse from an outer god of a whole different type of proportions of strength, and being next to Frenzied Flame, one of not in grand scale devastation to the lands between on a core baseness, the most terrifying. As Scarlet Rot is a disease that is a manifestation to the mind and does a bunch of different devastation to one's soul, it seems like in the mix. Not in a conceptual sense, but pretty much is the ultimate plague like no other. Imagine Black Plague and COVID, and this is what's shown in the means of Kaled, where it done an atomic level amount of devastation, nuked the plane, and eradicated everything off the senses, making it literally look like Florida. That right there would alone be a country level feat with the mass, in case of obviously proportional size, of all of Kaled, and just the pure fact that Malenia, with doing this, changed the entire case of atmosphere and the land and a bunch of different aspects of it that would make it at low end a country level thing to reasonably multi-country, depending on how you perceive what a full blossom of a goddess of rock could do. But that's just left alone right there. This also has big damaged her psychologically and physically, as the Scarlet Rot has cursed her so much as ate away at her normal proportional body parts, taking away her right arm, taking away parts of her leg, and obviously making her blind. Now, how she's able to fight blind is because a random blue wandering swordsman took pity on her and taught her the ways of the sword, and allows her to have so much resilience even against all possible adversity against her, to be able to fight with a blade that's literally one along with her. She was granted prosthetics, aka granted augmentation, by her little twin brother to allow her to be able to fight so skillfully and proficiently, even with her being, at always disadvantage. With that being said, she would get an augmented right arm that is attached with a blade that is one with her body, and showcase her being one of the most skilled, efficient swordswomen in the entire lands between, being undefeated, being a fierce, efficient, never defeating general that is able to body anybody in her way across the lands between, as she was the main dominating figure in the case of the Shattering, going across all the lands between, all the way from the Halletree at the bottom of the mountaintops of the Giants, and laying siege and smackdown to anyone that got in her way, making a bitch of Godric, which is not too hard to do, and multiple times being stated by not just people in verse, by Sir Gideon, who is a very big knowledge keeper and renowned dude in knowledge, right? As stalking us, knowing the capabilities of these different demigods and even taking aspects of their capabilities, stating to be the ultimate warrior, a demigoddess like no other, running from multiple people, and no other demigod arguably except for the mixed bag most renowned people like Mesmer, Radahn, Morgoth, and most importantly Godwyn the Golden could be on the same extremes and fame of her. But the pure fact of her skill being so much of these high revered stands, that makes her be someone to not be trifled with. Eventually, she would come to blows with her older half-brother, StarScourage Radahn, conqueror of the stars, king of the battlefield's line, the red famed boy himself, the GOAT. They would lock horns in combat and was said by Ronnie and multiple times stated to be the mightiest demigods of the Shattering. With Radahn being older, stronger, and having way more capabilities like no other, this would then again make her be one of the most strongest demigods, to being the strongest by a statement said where if Malenia was not tired, battered, and bruised from the countless fighting across the Shattering and the battle in Caelid, that she could have either had the same fate as in the means needing to blossom and take out Radahn, or it could have been a more decisive victor, as they stalemated / drawed, as again Radahn and Malenia fighting in the Shattering had a lot of stuff going on, but Radahn was more of a physical stand, aka being more physically ready, while someone like Malenia was more down and out, and when taking up her prosthetic arm was not on the same means. And this is said by a co-director to producer of Elden Ring, right, as known by Miyazaki, has all the proof in the pudding and all different accounts in Revel. So as I explained in my shameless plug, Radahn versus Malenia, who was stronger in Y video, I explained that Malenia countless times has multiple revered statements and scaling and assumption of matter for being way more stronger than what is shown in game, and same time being obviously stronger than Radahn for multiple reasons, especially with the fact that, simply put, Shawty is just a very built different swordswoman, and no one in the verse should arguably be able to scale to this skill and same time fame, except for the people I mentioned before, which even then Malenia has all the criteria to build the best, especially when we consider her ascension into godhood. But yeah, simply put, Malenia is definitely built for fights like no other, and is just an ultimate fighter, to say the least, right? But it isn't just in her blossoming the scaling to, Radahn, who, because of conquering the stars and controlling stars of such a vast regard, would make her going from low M, like multi-dwarf store level like capabilities, or consistently and reasonably because of how much vastly his stars are. The case of him, capturing and defeating, besting, shattering, crushing, star controlling, nebula making aliens in Astal and the star destroying beast, would make Radahn reasonably a multi-solar system to universal level character at a bare minimum. She's able to harm him, he's able to do these things to these people, and using the stars or not, and whatever with his gravity magic, which has been shown in the fight, reasonably should make that be the case. Ty will also just the pure fact that obviously she is able to, scale to these things by the greatest regard, with harming and obviously giving him stage 69 brain cancer. That would give her reasonable scale there. But what really gets both of them to reasonably universal and a great deal of people is the fact that Ronnie has a statement about being able to create a universal pocket dimension in the second phase of Ranala, with a statement given by Hidetoki Miyazaki himself, where he states that, simply put, he wanted the universe to come alive within her second phase, and with that being said, be shown through magic. There's also the fact that glintstone magic comes from different important parts of the universe is explained in greater detail. There's how with the fact that, all these people having a split part from Queen Medica and Radahn, who are all, grace of power of the greater will, especially because the Elden Ring is life in the lands between, not just the tarnish, but mixed bag perception to also be a way to give greater preservation and at the same time balance to people, which is more of a, cosmology factor that doesn't necessarily tie into full way of actual power stand, but you can give reasonable criteria to simply say that yes, Malenia, like others, should be scanned from a multi-solar system to universal scale. When it comes down to speed, it should be obvious that with Radahn being able to scale to stars and other things along those lines, that simply put, Malenia should be able to be scaling on the good deal mid relativistic to multiple times faster than light on a great deal of reason, as being able to scale and combat people that's able to make nebulas crack out the stars randomly at this speed, being able to scale to stars, compete with that, shown in the case of Concert Radahn's, boss fight, where he's literally beaming off light, moving at the speed of light consistently. That should reasonably make her, like them and everyone else, be reasonably massively faster than light. To add a little bit more to StarScourage Radahn, simply put, he's the famed general of Caelid, the red famed lion, king of the battlefields line, one of, not the most skilled person at a time within the Shatterin, next to a few others when it comes down to skills and accolades. I'm just going to bring a few statements to kind of really secure that home. Great warriors.
General Radahn, who fought Malenia and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid wilds. General Radahn, the famed Red Lion and Scourge of the Stars, is a ferocious warrior. He fought Malenia and her rot to a standstill in the Caelid wilds to Limgrave's east. And now Caelid has been engulfed by the Scarlet Rot. Even approaching the region is no mean feat. I've heard survivors of Radahn's army are still in the wilds, staving off the rot with fire. And if it's true, I suspect Radahn is still there as well, in Caelid. Though, I doubt he much resembles his former self anymore.
But I had that entire Malenia discussion / recording really just explain the fact of the matter that regardless of Radahn is now overarchingly stronger than Malenia, he scales to her regardless if she's injured, wounded, tired, and battered. It doesn't matter, especially in his prime. He has gravity magic, electro telekinesis, can ignite himself to become a meteor, can control stars, utilize stars, can create a lot of crazy, ridiculous array of hacks, uses light, fly, very creative with his stuff, has a bow and arrow. It allows him to use a mixed form of different, bow, arrows, spikes, and pillars. He can chain connect very cleanly with his StarScourage blades like Tuan D. He has actual, different blades that are called StarScourage blades, where he uses gravity magic prolifically because of that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Besides, mixed as well with, the obviously recordings and or discussion matter about what he is. Time to go and talk about Shao Kahn and Onaga. Shao Kahn and Onaga, two of the most infamous villains of Mortal Kombat, two acclaimed conquerors and emperors of Outworld, one of the realms of Mortal Kombat, a desecrated realm from the outside, but a very sometimes lavish, terrifying, and horrifying kingdom. With that being said, when it comes down to the case of the actual power and things to go ahead and sum up, I want to first give shout outs to its official underrated YouTuber, great content creator, great Mortal Kombat content creator, even someone speaking about power scaling, different talks of lore and shit like that. Hope he keeps making videos. Shout out to him. He's really put me on game beforehand involving my knowledge, involving shit. I have a lot of things that I'm kind of going to be just summing up as a synopsis that was more explaining my, again, shameless plug, Mortal Kombat power scaling tier list, where you see on the screen a few showcasings of it, and most importantly where I put this man, Shao Kahn and Onaga. With it being old timeline, we're taking in them at base, right, just by themselves, right, but also mix as well crack of even talking about the case of the Blaze Amp, but not talking about Kamudogu altogether, like Infinity Stones, aka the One Being's host, Onaga, mixed as well with Blaze fully acclaimed Shao Kahn. We're not talking about Blaze obtained power Shao Kahn, Kamidogu Onaga. I'm hoping I made that very clear just by talking. But with that being said, though, we're going to be talking about them as individuals of power, but let's go and get a little bit of some lore what is being said. First of all, Shao Kahn was a protector deity and advisor for Outworld under the service and same time, you know, command of Onaga as a protector deity like Radahn. He's not a person to be out here pulling up on people on means of Genghis Khan conquering, alright? He's not a full-on war dog, warrior, and or packer of multiple different form of realms. But because Shao Kahn had lust to go ahead and really achieve status of the most glory, right? He sought power, he sought the case of whatever possibly could be gained from conquering the realms. He decided, fuck being a protector god, I want to relish in being a god of war pretty much. And so this man sacrificed his god deityness, but still had a great sum of power, was basically like a demigod. And eventually, because he knew he couldn't defeat his emperor, Onaga, he decided to poison him and go about the means of killing him in the sight of getting power and taking him out of commission. With that being said, this man, after taking out Onaga, mixed with being poisoned or poisoning him, then beating him down when he was weak, would seize power and would merge the realms of Outworld multiple times over. Blah blah blah, with Shao Kahn multiple times trying to conquer realms, conquering some realms, beating people in Mortal Kombat, infamously Adenia, and trying to go and take out Earth. We move on to the point where this man has a capability from his powers being all tied to everything stacked upon Outworld, as he was a god of Outworld at one point, so his powers even being sacrificed are all fueled, mainlined by Outworld. This man, Shao Kahn, went about being so much of a unmovable object for our realm and others when it came down to fighting that he scales over most dang near half of almost every character to a greater deal. And in the Armageddon intro, which is mixed to be inferred to be canon, as talked about in my power scaling tier list, right? He would be wrecking house on multiple people, and the only time that he was able to be like caught off guard was by Shang Tsung randomly somehow being able to maneuver around him and kick him almost off the pyramid. But then Onaga bitch ass comes in, snatching him up, and that's when we have the conversation be switching out to Onaga. Onaga again was the original emperor. Onaga was a terrifying, built different titan of power. Onaga the Dragon King that leaded an undead, unrivaled, unparalleled, invincible army. Was able to snuff out multiple cases of opposition that came to him, was able to stand as tall as possible and erect house on multiple acclaimed places and people because of this. Onaga would be resurrected by mixed line of Reptile and another to come back to his full-fledged fury, and was able to take on the combined might of Radahn, Shang Tsung, and Quan Chi. Quan Chi with the amulet, this man Shang Tsung empowered by a Soulnado, and Radahn more than confident than ever, needed to go ahead and align forces with the two dark sorcerers to fight the Dragon King, and he was able to push past this power, literally walk it down, and knock down his own army. With this being said, Onaga reasonably should scale multiple times over a general base passive Shao Kahn. But obviously, in count of, you know, the tier list I talked about before to repop it up on screen as you guys see, obviously, they are very contingent. I think regardless how you see it, there's a lot of great things to be talking about. To restate my statement again, to reiterate, to rescind my point a little bit possibly more, is the fact that regardless how you see them, base or Blaze Amp, they're very relative. Obviously, I put Shao Kahn over mainly because regardless if you think Onaga has some more, you know, disparity of strength over him, Shao Kahn, because of his skill, hacks, accolades, having more wage of, greater gauge of shit, and his feats and scaling would reasonably stand over him. Don't get it twisted though. I think there's a lot of strong reasonableness to say and all that, again, they scale very solidly to each other. But all around, I just really wanted to go over, make it clear why I'm saying what I'm saying when it comes down to that. But besides that, the actual AP quantifiableness from this is because of the fact that at low end, with the fact of the matter, both of them, because of one point being a god, scaling over a god, doing feats and accolades that would give them infinite pool of power to be had, that should reasonably give them surmise of infinite universal amount of power, because both being at one point and technically still in the Grand Slam, being Emperor of Outworld, would reasonably secure them of having universal plus amount of power. This comes from the fact that Shao Kahn was able to drain an entire realm of souls, being a universe within Mortal Kombat, tied as well with the fact that someone like Onaga was feared by multiple greater deal people. Shao Kahn, even as a god, couldn't go about taking out Onaga by the statements, given. Tied as well, being feared for his invincible might, as well the fact that, even though when he sacrifices god deity capabilities, he still had to go ahead and do cunning to go and put him down. I think that reasonably should solidify him, just like Shao Kahn, again relative at this point, even more that it should be that. But you could reasonably get them both fully and consistently, especially with the Blaze Amp considered, reasonably low multiversal. Not only from the fact that Shao Kahn's power is wagered by how much universes are in matter for his realm, aka Outworld, being with Adenia, which at the end of the case of the series at this point was still a merger, Outworld itself. You had the case of Zatara, Ugnaught, possibly even 5 within bridging into Earthrealm, right? He reasonably should, scale to a low multiversal stand. Onaga should scale to this. They arguably should extend even more from this. If you talk about, the whole, Blaze Amp and shit between both of them, right? But besides that, with speed, they would reasonably, because of more combat combatants, be scaling from high regard relativistic to easily, reasonably, multiple times to massively faster than light, right? Some people have mixed interpretation because they got an infinite or immeasurable amount of boost and power that should equal to their speed. In a different scenario where it's set out right that's the case, or actually, concluded in actual showcasing, that would actually make sense. But what's actually demonstrated and represented, that doesn't make any sense in truth. And all around, I just do not see that being the case, and that's just like blatant bogus wank, right? But if it's an obvious, Shao Kahn and Onaga, regardless if you lowball it and basically try to do equal stats, which I will obviously infamously talk about in most cases in my videos, and prone to do better, bigger, I guess, picture for some people in mixed pun preciseness proclaim, right? I would like to say that even if you wanted to do equal stats, I still see Onaga and should not, go ahead, comparison with Shao Kahn and him to also be taken consideration about being stronger than the Elder God, unironically, even if he's falling, right? I wanted to say that I still think that they would defeat the twins of red hair greatness. I think that, simply put, that Shao Kahn and Onaga are way built different in regards of not just skill, it makes matter more on Shao Kahn's part, the hacks, abdominal matter of strength and durability, accolades, they have better, I feel like scaling in their favor, tied with the Blaze Amp, I think would be too insurmountable for them to even handle. And obviously with the scaling presented in actual truth, they would just scale way beyond them. You can even stretch being faster than them. So yeah, I would just say, even with that statement tied with everything else, they would just win. I think it is a mixed close fight to mix interesting depending on how you see it. And the only ways I could really say Radahn or Malenia winning by anyone's logic is Radahn pulls out all the fling of the artillery of his hacks, using stars, using all different mixture of gravity magic, basically piling pressure. But Shao Kahn could counter with his own hacks, the green magic, having great skill in regards to be able to move around that, the equal in speed. So a lot of what can happen is kind of mixed bag sense of situation. I think that someone like Onaga, even if he does not have all these radically built different artillery or hacks, has a lot of great statements to say that he should be able to scale to the same matter and be able to push past that. I think Malenia's skill, even as wicked as it is, would not be so much out of the field of understanding or viewage of the two conquerors that they could not push past it, especially with Onaga's strength being so a non set stone thing, but being so heavy that it could be barely even eclipsed by a guy that has all these different rack of all trades, learning and techniques, and even need to, be empowered to go and take out him when he became the host of the Great One Being. Still didn't think that he could defeat him even with all his knowledge and capabilities after the fact, and that was just at first meeting him. Onaga, I think, can all around pressurize and just overarchingly just overwhelm someone like Malenia, and they would push through immediately. Now, if Malenia blossomed and hit Onaga with it, in other cases, things possibly happen depending on the environment, right? And her obviously popping into Goddess of Rot, I think that would be where the advantage would come. But at the end of the day, it would have to either hit them, which I do believe that Onaga, regardless of him being able to fly decently fast, it would hit him. I believe that he would not be able to get around it. I believe that if he actually would be hit by it, it would close the entire discussion right there. But I believe that Shao Kahn could survive it because of his hacks, not actually taking at face value. But the fact is that at the end of the day, because of all the hacks capabilities and things along those lines, and the fact that if Shao Kahn is smart, which his version is, he would try to go ahead and savor the possible lasting strength of Onaga, and even though they are enemies and probably would fight after they're done with the two demigods of Elden Ring, they still need each other for the fight. So in the end, I believe fully and truly that in the case for the actual fight to commence, that they will actually plan to help each other anytime they can. I also think that even if you want to say that Onaga gets hit, gets put out of commission, but Shao Kahn has enough skill, tenacity, wit to push past both of them. I definitely think he would have a way more of a struggling fight, but I could see Shao Kahn with his ridiculous amount of hacks and versatility and capabilities that he would push past both of them, especially because you got soul manipulation. The green energy is ridiculously insurmisably strong, and his skill, I would say, far at least outclasses StarScourage Radahn to an extent. So yeah, I feel like in the end, Shao Kahn Onaga will get the dub, taking in everything to be said. Again, I think it's a cool fight when you actually look at it from the bigger picture. Regardless, though, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section down below. Let me know what more, in case of tag team or any type of videos you guys would like. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace out, my army. Love y'all.